dueling dragons, epic battles, and a subtle reminder never to take drinks from a stranger. Episode 204 of House of the Dragon is here with one of the most anticipated entries of the season. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into the episode, its connection to the book, and exploring such topics as what happened to Aegon, Daemon's connection to Alice Rivers, and the aftermath of Rhaenyra's revelation to Alicent. So you're going to want to sip some tea for this. Keep in mind there won't be any spoilers from the book beyond this episode, with a minor exception at the very end, but I'll give you a warning. Now make sure to like and subscribe, things are about to get hot. For those of you keeping a watchful eye on the intro credit sequence, unfortunately we don't have any new additions to the tapestry like we saw last week. However, after this episode's climactic finish, I would not be surprised if we'll see some new additions. Our episode aptly begins with Daemon looking upon the Iron Throne. With King's Landing firmly under control of Aegon, we can immediately tell this is some sort of dream. Notice how there's no statue of King Viserys, which we saw was added to the hall in episode 1. This is the throne room as Daemon remembers it. Daemon dreams this all the way in the ruined stronghold of Harrenhal, whose spires were melted by the dragon Balerion over a century ago. And this isn't the first time he's experienced these odd dreams. Last episode he dreamt of young Rhaenyra chastising him for having to clean up all his messes. That is before he woke up outside of a weirwood tree with the servant Alice Rivers telling him he's going to die in this place. And we have a lot to talk about her. This dream also features young Rhaenyra, although this time she's wearing her adult outfit and her father's crown, something we never saw her wear as a youngster. She speaks High Valyrian, a now dead language which originated in Old Valyria. Those who know its tongue are mainly scholars, Targaryens, and the Red Priests of Essos. Which leads me to Alice Rivers. Last episode I mentioned the theory that she could be the Red Priestess Melisandre from Game of Thrones. Melisandre is fluent in High Valyrian, as we saw her speak it multiple times to Thoros. But this still begs the question, is Alice controlling what Daemon sees, or are these merely the hallucinations of a man who's been drugged by one of her potions? Rhaenyra tells Daemon that he is set on destroying her, quote, all because your brother loved me more than he did you. While he may not be set on destroying her, Viserys' love for his daughter over Daemon is a hard pill for him to swallow. Time and time again we saw how Daemon yearned for the love and acceptance of his older brother, so there's a bit of truth to what Rhaenyra is saying here, and in his rage he cuts off her head. Now this is where things get really weird, and I'm gonna need your help. Who speaks this next line? I'm gonna play it for you, so listen carefully. Is it young Rhaenyra, who was just beheaded, by the way? Or is it Alice Rivers speaking to Daemon through this dream? Now, I've listened to this a dozen times, and it really sounds like it could be the actress who plays Melisandre. Anyways, it's kinda crazy, let me know what you think in the comments. The line itself is a projection of what Alice thinks Daemon always wanted, to be king. Later in the episode, she'll remark on how it must be difficult for him to give obeisance to one who replaced him as heir, and she asks if it pleases him that Rhaenyra's legitimacy is contested. Upon waking from his dream, he'll see blood on his hands, but it's blood that actually isn't there. Was this merely a figment of Daemon's imagination, or can Alice actually control what he sees even in a non-dream state? Simon Strong, the castellan of Harrenhal, wakes Daemon, alerting him that a raven has arrived. We'll later learn that Rhaenyra's Grand Maester Gerardus has sent several ravens to Harrenhal, inquiring about Daemon's progress, all of which have gone unanswered. Something Alice surmises is a result of him still quarreling with Rhaenyra. I think there's a part of Daemon that wants to make Rhaenyra sweat a little bit, make him show her how important and valuable he really is. This is the same tactic he used taking the stepstones in his brother's name. Simon updates Daemon on the war. Criston Cole and his army have taken over Rosby and Stokeworth without siege, and amalgamated their armies into his own. In the books, Lords Rosby and Stokeworth, who were loyal to Rhaenyra, were imprisoned at the Red Keep the night of Viserys' death, and forced to swear fealty to Aegon or die. Now to prove their loyalty, they will join forces against Rhaenyra. I also love this little detail that in the upcoming Battle of Rook's Rest, it is Rosby and Stokeworth troops who are the first to be sent out to die, while most of the Hightower and Targaryens chill in the back. Daemon, however, does not know where Criston, or as he likes to call him, Crispin, will strike next. The logical move is Harrenhal due to its strategic position and Daemon's lack of an army. This is why Daemon has requested the presence of Lord Grover Tully, Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. And did any of you catch this weird shot of a black goat? It was a conscious decision on the part of the writers to put this in there, so it has to have some significance. Black goats are often symbolic of the occult and witchcraft, of which Alice in the books is referenced to as a witch. They are also ill omens of evil and misfortune. And misfortune is in Daemon's future when Lord Grover Tully is unable to make his request. As we'll learn from his grandson Oscar, his grandsire is incapacitated and on the brink of death. Fun fact, the Tullys are all named after Muppets. Daemon says Oscar the Grouch Tully should just kill his grandsire and take over so shit can actually get done. Because if Oscar can't make decisions for his men, then he's about as useful to Daemon as a fish with its head cut off. Daemon requires men of action, thus he calls for the leader of House Blackwood. House Blackwood and Bracken have already started fighting, as we saw the aftermath of the Battle of the Burning Mill last episode. Rhaenys heads down to the docks in search of Corlys when she finds Alan of Hull, the man who saved her husband from drowning at sea. This is an extremely odd conversation, and with the following bits of information, something becomes quite clear. And I don't consider this a spoiler considering the vast amount of clues we're given. Rhaenys calls Alan comely, another word for attractive. Says his mother must have been beautiful. Corlys did not mention it was Alan who saved his life. Corlys has kept him hidden instead of honored. And finally, Alan's brother Adam said Corlys owes both of them. If it isn't apparent, Adam and Alan are the bastard children of Corlys Velaryon. This is why he's wanted to keep them hidden, why Alan appears resentful, and why Adam says he owes them. Rhaenys is no fool and isn't oblivious to Corlys's philandering past. Remember, this was a guy who spent years out at sea, so who knows what he was up to. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Alicent holds on to the dragon figurine she gifted Viserys way back in Season 1, Episode 2. This is the first time we've seen Alicent since the big revelation that Viserys never wanted Aegon to be king, so obviously she has Viserys on her mind. The dropping of the figurine is definitely not a good omen. Grandmaster Orwyle arrives having brewed moon tea, a medicinal herbal tea used to abort pregnancies. We saw Rhaenyra given some after her foray with Criston Cole, so it's kind of ironic that Alicent takes some after hers. It was also moon tea that Alicent gave the servant girl Diana, who we saw as a server at the tavern, after she was by Aegon. Of course, Alicent says this tea isn't for her, but we'll later see her down it in secret as she holds onto her stomach. Alicent spends most of the episode drinking, wanting to drown out the feelings of what she has just done, both of her misinterpretation of Viserys' wishes and this unborn child. The Black Council convenes without the leadership of Rhaenyra. She has kept her trip to King's Landing a secret, a trip which would take several days by sea considering she can't use her dragon. We've already seen how the Black Council has been chomping at the bit for war, but with Daemon and now Rhaenyra gone, as well as Criston Cole's army on the move, things are looking dire. And dire it is, as Criston's army has overtaken the home of House Darklyn at the Battle of Duskendale. Criston tells the defeated men that they either join him or perish as he beheads Lord Gunther Darklyn. In the book, this is Steffon Darklyn's nephew, however in the show they've made him Steffon's father. Gunther calls Cole by his new nickname, Kingmaker, a derogatory term referring to Criston crowning Aegon instead of who it actually should have gone to. The Lord says Criston's day will one day come. Notice how Criston receives a message. Last episode he got one too. Someone is feeding him information. Now the question is this from his troops, Aemond, or potentially a spy within the Black Council? Meanwhile, on the Green Council, a furious King Aegon is pissed after finding out Harrenhal has been taken by Daemon. This is Larys's castle, and he can't believe his new Lord of Whisperers couldn't keep it together. But as Larys says,
well, that castle is more crippled than I am, Your Grace.
Larys says it's not that big of a problem. He still controls all of the money, and the castle is no good without an army. But it's Aemond who really pisses Aegon off, revealing that he and Sir Criston have made plans behind his back. While Aegon wants to take Harrenhal immediately, Aemond defies his king and informs him that Criston is off to Rook's Rest. We saw back in episode 1 how Criston and Aemond plotted together, making no heed of their sovereign's will. Deep down, Aemond has always known he would be the better king.
It is I who trains with the sword, who rides the largest dragon in the world. It is I who should be Choose your next words wisely.
He even has a fluent grasp of High Valyrian, while Aegon struggles to put a sentence together. There's a lot of resentment here for his brother, compounded with the fact he was mercilessly teased by him in his youth, and even as an adult. So I like to think Aemon takes pleasure in watching Aegon flounder at his new role as he becomes the de facto brains behind their military campaign. I also think it was interesting to have Aemon speak High Valyrian here so only Aegon would understand. That is, if he could understand. He jests that the king was busy with more pressing matters like choosing a sobriquet, and I had to look that word up, it means nickname. We saw on the night of Blood and Cheese he and his friends drunkenly laughed about what he would be named, like Aegon the Magnanimous. Aemon basically states that if Aegon has any better idea on how to proceed, he should let the council know. But for now, Rook's Rest is both an easy and worthy target. Its capture would cut off Dragonstone's main entry to the mainland. Alicent prepares some hot rocks to ease the pain on her stomach caused by the moon tea. She's fallen a bit ill after taking it, hence why she wasn't at the morning's council. And if Alicent couldn't feel any worse, her favorite feet enthusiast has come to check up on her. Loras sees past Alicent's claim that her sickness was an overindulgence of lamprey pie, clocking the moon tea container on the side. He remarks on how it must be hard for Alicent knowing Criston is off to war, another hint that Loras knows of their affair. In episode 1, Loras had Alicent's servants replaced with those handpicked by him, so they undoubtedly report to him on all her comings and goings. He also notices that Alicent has taken out a bunch of books on Westerosi history. Could she be looking for any information about Aegon the Conqueror and the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire? It's a fool's errand, as this prophecy is only passed down from heir to heir. Later in the episode, Rhaenyra will pass this on to Jace, who is set to be king after her. There's a great juxtaposition of this conversation happening in front of a dragon skull, just like it happened for young Rhaenyra and Viserys back at King's Landing. It is thought that the dragon skull here is that of Meraxes, a dragon that belonged to Queen Rhaenys. Not this Rhaenys, rather the sister wife of Aegon the Conqueror. Meraxes died in 10 AC to an iron bolt during the First Dornish War. Alicent has succumbed to the reality that it's too late to stop this war. No matter what she says, Rhaenyra's supporters will believe anything she says, and Aegon's supporters will believe anything he says. Many will die, and someone will end up on the throne. Whatever Viserys' intentions on who should get the throne may be, they died with him. Daemon experiences another dream/hallucination as he follows a one-eyed version of himself through the halls of Harrenhal. This is some foreshadowing at a specific event that's to come in the book, but it also points at the similarities between him and Aemon. Not only is Aemon an anagram for Daemon, both have been overlooked for the throne, are fearsome warriors, ride dragons, and are ruthless in their ambition. Aemon has always respected Daemon in a way. Just look at this reaction shot when Daemon beheads Vaemond in episode 8, or how he backs off when Daemon confronts him after things get a little too heated at Viserys' Last Supper. These two men share a lot in common, and the gods only know what would happen if they met each other in battle. This vision leads him to Alice, almost as if she was leading him to her. She prepares a herbal drink and considers herself a sort of maester of Harrenhal. Her last name Rivers means she's a bastard, as bastards are donated a specific surname depending on which region they were born. The book states that there are rumors her father is former Master of Coin Lionel Strong. She informs Daemon that Harrenhal is cursed. A grove of sacred weirwood trees were felled so that Harrenhal, the last king of the Iron Islands and Riverlands, could build Harrenhal. He'd be burned alive along with his children within its walls by Balerion after refusing to bend the knee to Aegon the Conqueror. This ended the line of House Hor, and Aegon granted House Tully its rule. Even Daemon's bed is made from the wood of a heart tree, those weirwoods with the carved faces in them. Alice makes a joke that she's not a woman but a barn owl, and what better animal to describe her than one which symbolizes wisdom, mystery, death, and omens. Now there is one shot I really want to talk about. Take a listen to this.
Do you now plan to make your own claim?
She's referring to Daemon on whether he plans to make a claim over Rhaenyra's right to the throne, but notice how she moves her hand over her stomach during this line. This line has a double meaning. Does Daemon plan to make a claim over Alice, as in bed her? The book only says this about Alice and Daemon. Whatever Alice's powers, it would seem Daemon Targaryen was immune to them, for little is heard of this supposed sorceress whilst the prince held Harrenhal. Well, he certainly doesn't seem to be immune to Alice in the show. After imbibing imbibing a mystery drink from her, Daemon comes to during his meeting with Sir Willem Blackwood, the young lord who vied for Rhaenyra's hand way back in Season 1, Episode 3. Willem is not a character in the book, but it looks like they'll be using him as a means for Daemon to get his army. Now, Daemon has no recollection of what happened between drinking Alice's Cosby potion and now. Is it possible Alice took control of his body? Willem is currently regent to House Blackwood, as its lord Samwell Blackwood died in the Battle of the Burning Mill, and his son Benchicot is too young to rule. According to the book, he would be 11 years old. Willem remembers the oath his lord made to Rhaenyra and intends to honor it, offering his army in exchange for the queen's justice being delivered on the Brackens. Now, Daemon also has a vision of his deceased wife Laena. No matter where he goes in Harrenhal, he's haunted by the past. Aegon continues to throw a fit when he hears that Criston Cole is being called the Kingmaker. It's a name that delegitimizes his claim to the throne and suggests that power is consolidated in Criston and not him. He storms out of the meeting, and I love how the others just continue on even with him not being there. The big item of contention at the moment is the need for livestock for their dragons, with Aegon stating that the small folk can either give them up willingly or they can take it by force. This shortage of livestock was foreshadowed in Episode 1. Alicent searches for Viserys' old books in what was once his chambers. Now they belong to Aegon. Aegon had them removed as he never was into books. I love this subtle shot of Aegon going to pour himself a glass of wine only to find it empty. This suggests his mom has been drinking, and drinking for some time. Listen to how annoyed she is when Aegon starts venting his frustration.
What is it?
They don't care what I think.
The council does basically everything without consulting him, and with the wine releasing her of her inhibitions, she is brutal to her son. Instead of comforting him, she basically calls him a puppet king with no thoughts of his own. She had hoped that Aegon would remain silent and learn from those around him, but instead he's made rash decisions that have jeopardized himself and the kingdom. Even when Aegon threatens his mother, she's like, "What are you gonna do? Hang me like a rat catcher? Banish me like your grandfather?" Alicent ruled for years while Viserys was ill. If anything, Aegon should heed the counsel of others and not be a whiny baby saying they aren't heeding his. Criston's army arrives along the forest surrounding Rook's Rest. Its large tower looks a bit like a rook chess piece. This is the home of House Staunton. Simon Staunton sits on Rhaenyra's Black Council and told us last episode that he would be returning to prepare for its defense. Criston rallies his men wanting to head into battle immediately, but Gwayne questions this decision. He says it's madness to go in daylight with dragons out there. At first I thought Cole had a death wish for everything that's happened over the past few weeks. However, this is not the case. As we'll find out later, this is all part of Cole's secret plan with Aemond. Rhaenyra arrives back at Dragonstone and is brought up to speed. Jace has joined the others and they call for war as Cole's army marches closer to Rook's Rest. The council is not happy after finding out about Rhaenyra's venture to King's Landing, a gamble which could have lost her life, not to mention that of everyone's at the table. As Jace states, if Rhaenyra dies, the war is over. But Rhaenyra arrives clear-headed, now knowing the choice she has before her, either claim the throne or die. The prospect of peace is over. Jace offers to travel to Rook's Rest on Vermax, but his mother won't allow it. She is protective of her son and knows the danger he'd be in should Aemond and Vhagar be near. Vhagar has already claimed one of her children. Instead, Rhaenyra says she will go, but this idea is quickly deemed too dangerous and Rhaenys offers instead. After all, she is no stranger to battle and she has Meleys, the largest of their dragons. Aegon, tired of being cast aside, pours himself some liquid courage and hops on his dragon Sunfire to join the battle. He so wants to prove himself as worthy of the crown. This is juxtaposed with Jace, who is told of Aegon's prophecy, the Song of Fire and Ice. Rhaenyra believes she is the one to unite the realm from a quote-unquote common foe. She doesn't know this yet, but it's a reference to the Night King who won't appear for another 100 years. Meanwhile, Lord Staunton defends from an army of 14 to 1500 strong as Cole's army presses the attack. And I found it pretty funny that they all start retreating at the sight of Meleys. Gwayne is like, "I told you so," but this is all part of Cole's plan to lure one of Rhaenyra's dragons. Hidden in the forest is Aemond and Vhagar, but as he goes to heed the signal, he spots his brother atop Sunfire. Now, Aemond could have taken off and followed immediately after his brother, but he doesn't. Perhaps he's fine with Aegon proving himself to be an idiot, and if Aegon were to fall in battle, Aemond would be next in line to the throne. As Aegon's son Jaehaerys is dead, Jaehaerys is a girl, therefore ineligible, and the show has written out about Aegon's third child, Maelor. Criston gives his men a Braveheart-esque pep talk praying that Aemond will come. Instead, he gets budget Aemond with Aegon atop Sunfire, who is no match for Rhaenys and the battle-hardened Meleys. The battlefield almost stands still as Vhagar makes her entrance. This is one battle-hardened dragon, as we can see the various rips and tears in her wings. And Aemond has no regard for his brother, spewing fire at Meleys even though his brother is in the way. Sunfire, however, is ripped to shreds, its blood scalding soldiers beneath it. Meleys delivers a disastrous blow with Sunfire plummeting into the nearby forest, Aegon along with it. Now, Rhaenys could have claimed this a victory and headed back home, but she doesn't. She comes back to fight Vhagar even though this dragon is much larger than hers, and the battle ends up being absolutely brutal. Meleys' claws tear into Vhagar's flesh, but a surprise attack by Vhagar biting into Meleys' neck is the near-fatal blow. Rhaenys knows she is about to meet her death and gives up to her fate. Thus ends the story of the queen who never was. I like how Criston Cole basically did nothing in this battle but run away. He sees the aftermath of the battle as his men breach the walls of Rook's Rest, created by Rhaenys' dragon. But ever the loyal Kingsguard, he turns his sights to Aegon. In the clearing, he sees Aemond, sword drawn, heading toward the king. I found this such an interesting shot. Was he putting his sword away, or was he going to finish off his brother? He picks up the cat's paw dagger, an item gifted to Aegon on his coronation day, which once belonged to Viserys. Could Aemond picking up his brother's dagger be a metaphor for him taking over? Now, for those of you who do not want to know whether Aegon is alive or dead, click off now, okay? Good. In the book, Aegon is alive, however extremely burned, with parts of his armor melted into his flesh. As a result, he is bedridden for a year, and Aemond takes over as protector of the realm until his recovery. The Battle of Rook's Rest has a profound impact on the future of the war. With Rhaenys dead, Aegon injured, and Dragonstone now cut off from its primary entry to the mainland, things just got a lot worse for both parties. But what did you think of the episode? I want to hear your